the way you get that, 40,000 U.S. Navy sailors, 151 destroyers protecting aircraft carriers at Okinawa, 129 were hit by kamikazes. It's only by the grace of God I'm actually standing here. But with the brave Marines and the Navy, they fought their way to Japan. But you know how we beat that totalitarian military thing? We had submarines that sank every oil tanker that came into that island. Japan is 125 million people in the size of North and South Dakota, and they have virtually no oil and gas production. We were over there. Some of the greatest work that the United States ever did was after that with MacArthur, turning that country into a democracy, turning them into an ally, turning them in for a while before China passed them just recently, second largest economy in the world, a liberal democracy, our partner. And what do we do now to our ally? We are not providing them energy. Of course we're not providing them energy because we're trying to kill the U.S. energy industry. And so who is at most at risk? They get all their energy coming through the South China Sea. The world's largest navy is now China. And this is what we're up against. Our policy is not about supporting ourselves or our allies. And then, of course, you saw this slide this morning, so I'll go quick. Unleashing U.S. energy versus draining. This is absolutely ridiculous because this is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This was drained to lower the price at the pump ahead of the midterms. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve became the U.S. political midterm lower prices reserve. And this is a catastrophe for us, and you heard about China's filling up theirs and the U.S. was dropping theirs, but this is how politicized they become. We need to keep growing our output through innovation. There's all kinds of ways to do that. I'm thrilled to see between leaders in the biofuels and ethanol and Harold Hamm himself coming together to say, hey, we can solve all kinds of liquid fuels because let's end any idea that there's a battle going on between ethanol, biofuels, and oil and gas. Let's just say that's over. Why? Because if you're on Team EV, you're on Team China. If you're on Team Biden, you're on Team China Energy Plan. If you're on Team Liquid Fuels, you're on Team USA. You're on Team USA and Team US allies. Yes, of course, there's a place for electric vehicles for certain niche things, but it's not every vehicle. It's not BNSF trains coming across the northern plains. It's not for airplanes flying across the Pacific. I don't think any of you are getting on a battery-powered plane anytime soon because you would understand the weight ratio and physics wouldn't make that work. But we can be the world's leader in sustainable aviation fuel. We can have low-carbon liquid fuels. You don't even have to be concerned about climate because there's a demand for this. People pay for this. We have to fill these markets. So we're going to keep investing in growing our output through innovation. But we need, as you know, we need reliable, affordable domestic energy. That's absolutely core to what we have to do in our country. And of course, the Biden administration trying to kill that. You heard about it this morning, the Willow Project. I got a pop out here on the Willow Project. That white dot in the middle of the Willow Project is the size of the thing that everybody's fighting over. It's less than 1 square mile. It's barely the size of 2 golf courses in the entire National Petroleum Reserve, which is the size of half of Oklahoma. Half of Oklahoma, that was put away for a National Petroleum Reserve for times like we're in right now when we're competing with a global adversary like China. We're in a Cold War with China. We're in a cyber war with China. We're getting attacked every day from a cyber attack from China. I can tell you that as the governor of a state. We do. But this is what this whole debate is about, is less than 1 square mile. This is ridiculous that we would even be having this trying to have this be a sensible debate because of the land use. In North Dakota, where we now, again, 3rd largest oil producing state in the country, the total surface area, because of the 2-mile and now 3-mile laterals that are actually occupied by land use by the oil and gas industry, is less than 1/20th of 1% of the surface area in our state. It's less than 40 square miles, all the development we've had through the whole Bakken and before. 1/20th of 1% of the state, and those pads, are bermed, they're fantastic, and so, you can take 4 acres out of 1280, and that's what's dedicated to this oil and gas industry. You can't do that with wind, you can't do that with solar. The land use in North Dakota, we still get to ranch, and we get to farm. We get to do all the land use things we do when your industry is there. They're completely compatible, and it's also great for wildlife, and it would have worked here, because we know it works in North Dakota, it would have worked here. I literally don't know what argument they're using other than the power of the executive branch to crush projects that would allow us to have a sea lane that would go from Alaska to Japan, to South Korea, to the Philippines. All of our allies could be supported by this. And then, of course, you can't get a pipeline permitted in this country. We've been talking about it for 5 years. The first year I was in office, after we battled through the whole Dakota Access Pipeline problem, where the Obama administration was actively supporting a 10,000-person protest, in our state on federal land the day I took office. It took us 76 days to defuse that. We got that done. And we could be, again, supplying all of our allies in the Pacific. You saw the charts. You saw everything that's happening. You saw how they're controlling the South China Sea. Japan gets all of their energy imported by boat through the South China Sea. When we were there with our delegation from North Dakota last fall, while we were there, North Korea literally shot a missile over the top of the island while we were there. I've been in a lot of international business meetings because I've had people working for me in over 120 countries before I got into this job. I've never been in a meeting where the people we're with were getting a text that a missile was coming. But that's the world that we're living in right now. So, better economy, cleaner energy, national security, that's what we get. And then meanwhile, when we don't have that, of course, the current policy is driving higher inflation. The average family in America is paying $700 more per month for their basic goods, food on the table and gas in their car. And the food on the table, of course, agriculture, one of the biggest inputs is energy prices. So that's driving that. But how can we provide low carbon liquid fuels and low carbon baseload? Well, we can do that through innovation. I'm going to have a chance to moderate a panel this afternoon about North Dakota's geologic jackpot. We've got the ability in underground to store all the CO2 of the United States for the next 50 years. 252 billion tons of storage. We've got the pooling, the permitting, and the liability protection in place. There's over $40 billion of projects coming to North Dakota right now because of this capability, and everything from base load to pig iron to steel to other forms of manufacturing. It's fantastic. And we know that we've got on the panel this afternoon, you're going to hear from Chris and Denbury. And on the next slide, they're producing carbon negative oil. You got a company in this room that's greener than Patagonia using the same formulas. And we're doing it right there in North Dakota. And they're stimulating 1980s wells that are producing at the highest levels they've done in decades. Supplying critical baseload power. We've got some of our North Dakota power providers that are here. They're leading some of the largest projects in the country relative to CO2 storage. We've permitted over 100 million tons of CO2 storage areas in North Dakota. You can't get Americans to agree on anything today, but in a 32 square mile, 90% of the landowners this year voted to get a paycheck for being able to do CO2 storage, because we define in state law that those farmers and ranchers that own the surface own the pore space where the CO2 is going. So if you have the right regulatory environment, then innovation can flourish. And it's one of the reasons why North Dakota's got the highest GDP of any Republican-led state in the nation, and we're on track to have the highest GDP in the country. Supplying critical baseload power, this is absolutely necessary. As I said, there's a large market opportunity for low-carbon liquid fuels, for sure. Sustainable aviation fuels, if the heart of that is going to be the heartland of America, and that could double the size of the market for low carbon liquid fuels, and this industry working together with agriculture has a chance to do that. To close this out, I just want to say that one of the things that's happening in North Dakota is that we're building a presidential library to honor Theodore Roosevelt. And this wouldn't be possible without the generous support of many people, but specifically Harold Hamm. Harold this last year made the decision to be the lead gift, the lead donor, with an incredible $50 million gift. What you can see there in that slide is what will be one of the most dramatic buildings in America. It's on 93 acres just outside the park. It'll overlook the Theodore Roosevelt National Park, the cradle of conservation. But as Theodore Roosevelt famously said, conservation is as much development as it is protection. He understood that when he put away the 230 million acres of land in our country, that was our nation's balance sheet. That's what we were going to use at times like this. It wasn't we're going to lock them up and never cut a tree and never develop and never harvest any rare earth minerals and never develop any oil or gas resources. It wasn't that. But I think that the work that all of you are doing is work worth doing, and far away the best prize that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at work worth doing. All of you are doing work worth doing. All of you are making a difference, not just for our country. You're making the world safer. You're making the world more prosperous. And I want to just say in closing, as I said at the beginning, what all of you are doing, you're doing the exact 6 words that we cover in North Dakota every day, because our government runs on in North Dakota. We got together and said, wow, when I got here, I got 170 silos and budgets all spread out. We all got to be working on one thing. So in North Dakota, we work on empowering people, improving lives, and inspiring success. And it turns out that that's exactly what all of you do. We're so aligned. Thank you for your investments in North Dakota. Thank you for making the world safer. Thank you for making the nation more prosperous. Together, we need to turn the Biden energy policy 180 degrees in the other direction. It's going to happen if we can all work together. Thank you very much. I'll see you this afternoon and see you tonight.